A meeting of fates. The day had started like any other for Claire Thompson, but it would end as one that changed her life forever. Claire's morning routine was precision itself. Wake up at 5:30 a.m., sip her single origin coffee while scrolling through emails, and head into her office by 7:00 a.m. sharp. As the CEO of Thompson Global Foundation, her days were filled with meetings, decisions, and planning projects that would change lives across the globe. But today, something felt different. The air in downtown Seattle carried a crisp chill, and the golden hues of autumn leaves scattered along the pavement hinted at change. Claire stepped out of her car, her heels clicking softly against the cobblestones of the foundation's entrance. She adjusted the strap of her leather bag and glanced up at the towering building she had built from scratch, a monument to her vision of helping those in need. Yet, for all her success, Claire couldn't shake the weight of the anniversary looming over her. It had been 10 years since she lost Lucas, her husband, and the love of her life. His absence was a wound she had learned to live with, but never fully healed. As Claire reached the steps, she noticed a boy sitting on the cold marble. His head was bowed, dark locks of hair falling into his face as he clutched a worn backpack tightly against his chest. She hesitated. It wasn't unusual to see people in need around the foundation, but there was something about this boy, something in the way his small frame seemed to fold into itself, like he was trying to disappear. Her heart tugged, and before she knew it, her feet had carried her closer. "Excuse me," she said softly. The boy looked up, startled. His eyes were a striking shade of gray, wide and filled with a mix of fear and determination. He couldn't have been older than 10, maybe 11. "Are you all right?" Claire asked, her voice gentle but firm. The boy hesitated, clutching his backpack tighter. I just need a minute. I'll leave soon. I promise." Claire crouched down to his level, her tailored coat brushing the ground. "It's okay. You're not in trouble. Do you need help?" The boy's lips pressed together, and he seemed to wrestle with his words. Finally, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver necklace. The chain was delicate, and at the center hung a pendant shaped like a blooming flower. He held it out to her, his hands trembling. "My dad gave me this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He told me it was special, that it would keep me safe." Claire's breath caught in her throat. The pendant glinted in the morning sunlight, and for a moment, the bustling world around her faded away. She knew this necklace. Not one like it, not something similar, but this exact design. She'd know it anywhere. It was a one-of-a-kind piece, created by Lucas himself in the early days of their marriage. He had designed it for their unborn daughter, a child they never got to meet. The loss had been devastating, a pain they carried together in silence. The necklace had been meant to represent hope, beauty, and life. And now, here it was, in the hands of a boy she'd never met. Her voice wavered as she asked, "Where did you get this?" The boy blinked, startled by the urgency in her tone. "I told you, it was my dad's. He gave it to me before he passed away." Claire's world tilted. Her pulse thundered in her ears, and she struggled to form coherent thoughts. How did he get it?" she asked, her words tumbling over each other. "I don't know," the boy said, his grip tightening on the necklace. "He just said it was important, that it came from someone who cared about us." Claire's mind raced. The necklace had been lost for years. She thought it had disappeared with Lucas's belongings when he passed. It was impossible for this boy to have it. And yet here it was. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice softening. "Jamie," the boy replied. "Jamie," she repeated, trying to steady herself. "I want to help you, but I need to know more. Where are your parents?" Jamie's face darkened, and he looked away. "My dad's gone," he said after a long pause. "And my mom, she left a long time ago." Claire's chest ached at the sadness in his voice. "You're alone?" Jamie nodded, his small shoulders sagging under the weight of the word. Claire looked at the necklace again, the question swirling in her mind threatening to overwhelm her. This boy, this stranger, had a connection to her past. She didn't know how or why, but she couldn't ignore it. "Come with me," she said gently, standing and holding out her hand. Jamie hesitated, his gray eyes searching hers. "Why?" "Because I think you and I have more in common than you realize," she said, her voice firm but kind. After a moment, Jamie placed his small hand in hers. It was cold, and she gave it a reassuring squeeze. Together, they walked into the Thompson Global Foundation, the necklace swinging gently in Jamie's other hand, a symbol of the mystery that was about to unravel their lives. A stranger's story unfolds. The quiet hum of the Thompson Global Foundation filled the air as Claire guided Jamie through the bright, spacious lobby. Modern art pieces adorned the walls, and sunlight streamed through towering glass windows, casting shimmering patterns on the marble floors. Employees glanced curiously at Claire and the boy by her side. It wasn't every day their impeccably polished CEO escorted a scruffy, wide-eyed child into the inner sanctum of their building. Claire, however, paid no attention to their stares. Her mind was focused entirely on the silver necklace clutched in Jamie's hand and the storm of questions swirling inside her. They'd reached her private office, a serene space filled with warm wood tones and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline. Claire gestured for Jamie to sit on the plush leather couch. "Would you like something to drink? Hot chocolate, maybe," she offered gently. Jamie's eyes flickered with surprise at the kindness. "Hot chocolate," he echoed, as if it were a luxury he hadn't dared to imagine. Claire smiled softly. "I'll have my assistant bring some." She pressed a button on her intercom, and within minutes, Sarah, her efficient and cheerful assistant, appeared with a tray holding a steaming mug of hot chocolate and a small plate of cookies. Jamie stared at the mug as if it were a treasure. He wrapped his hands around it, letting the warmth seep into his chilled fingers. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely audible. Claire took a seat across from him, her gaze steady but compassionate. "Jamie, I need to understand something," she began carefully. "How did your father get that necklace?" Jamie's grip on the mug tightened. "I don't know exactly," he admitted. "He always said it was special, but he didn't talk much about where it came from." Claire leaned forward, her heart aching at the boy's uncertainty. "What was your father like?" A bittersweet smile tugged at Jamie's lips. "He was the best," he said softly. "He worked hard, even when he got sick. He always made sure I had something to eat, even if he didn't. And he told great stories about adventures and faraway places." Claire's throat tightened. The love Jamie had for his father was palpable, and it reminded her so much of the way Lucas used to talk about their dreams for the future. "What happened to him?" she asked gently. Jamie's expression darkened. "Cancer," he said flatly. "We couldn't afford the treatments anymore. He tried to stay strong, but he just couldn't fight it forever." Claire's heart shattered at the raw pain in his voice. "I'm so sorry, Jamie," she whispered. Jamie shrugged, as if trying to brush off the weight of his loss. "It's okay. I promised him I'd be strong. That's why I kept the necklace. He said it would protect me." Claire's eyes flickered to the pendant once more. "Did he ever tell you anything about the person who gave it to him?" Jamie hesitated, as if grappling with a memory. "He said, it came from someone who loved us, even if we didn't know them." Claire's breath caught. The possibility that Lucas had somehow known Jamie's father was becoming harder to dismiss. "Where are you staying now?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. Jamie's gaze dropped to his lap. "Wherever I can," he admitted. "Sometimes the shelter, but it's crowded and not always safe. Sometimes I just find a place to sleep outside." The thought of this child navigating the harsh streets alone ignited a protective instinct within Claire. "You shouldn't be alone, Jamie," she said firmly. "I'm going to help you." Jamie looked up, his expression skeptical. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." Claire's voice softened. "Maybe not yet, But I think fate brought us together for a reason, and I'm not going to turn my back on you." Jamie studied her for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether he could trust her. Finally, he nodded, a glimmer of hope flickering in his eyes. "Okay," he said quietly. Claire stood, her resolve strengthening. "The first thing we're going to do is make sure you have a safe place to stay. After that, we'll figure out the rest." As she led Jamie toward the door, a thought struck her. "Jamie," she asked, "what was your father's name?" "David Harris," he replied. Claire's steps faltered. The name didn't immediately ring a bell, but something about it tugged at the edges of her memory. "I see," she said thoughtfully. "We'll talk more soon." Jamie gave her a tentative smile. "Thanks for not just walking past me." Claire's chest tightened. "Sometimes the people who meet us most are right in front of us," she said softly. As they exited the office, Claire knew this was only the beginning. The necklace was a key to a past she thought she had left behind, and Jamie was the link that would unravel secrets she never imagined. And as much as she wanted to protect him, she had a sinking feeling that the journey ahead would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, loss, and family. Pieces of a broken past. Claire sat in the back seat of her town car, the quiet hum of the city filtering through the tinted windows. Jamie was beside her, gazing out at the towering buildings and bustling streets with a mixture of awe and weariness. His small fingers fidgeted with the silver necklace, the pendant glinting in the afternoon light. The weight of the morning's revelations pressed heavily on Claire's chest. David Harris, a name that scratched at the edges of her memory, elusive yet familiar. The necklace, unmistakably Lucas's creation, remained an unsettling mystery. How had David Harris, a man Claire had never met, come into possession of something so deeply personal? Her thoughts churned as the car turned onto a quiet street lined with historic brownstones. They stopped in front of a beautifully restored building, the Haven House, one of the Foundation's premier shelters for children and families in crisis. "We're here," Claire said gently, turning to Jamie. He blinked, his gray eyes wary. "This is for me." "For now," Claire assured him. "It's safe, warm, and the people here are kind. I want you to have a place where you can rest and not worry about tomorrow." Jamie's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm not used to people helping me," he admitted. Claire's heart ached at the admission. "Well, get used to it," she said with a soft smile. "Everyone needs a little help sometimes." As they stepped out of the car, the director of Haven House, a warm-hearted woman named Miriam, greeted them at the door. Her curly hair framed a face that radiated compassion. "Claire, always good to see you," Miriam said, her eyes lighting up. "And who's this young man?" "This is Jamie," Claire introduced. "He'll be staying here for a while." Miriam knelt to Jamie's level, her smile gentle. "Welcome, Jamie. We've got a cozy room waiting for you, and I hear Chef Marco is making his famous spaghetti tonight." Jamie's eyes flickered with interest. "Spaghetti. The best you'll ever have," Miriam promised with a wink. Jamie glanced at Claire, uncertainty lingering in his gaze. "You're coming back, right?" Claire knelt beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "I promise," she said firmly. "I'll come back, and we'll figure things out together." Jamie nodded reluctantly, his trust fragile but forming. As Miriam led Jamie inside, Claire watched him go, her chest tightening with a mixture of relief and determination. Once Jamie was safely inside, Claire returned to her car, her mind racing. There were too many unanswered questions, and she couldn't rest until she had some clarity. "Take me to the archives," she instructed her driver. The car glided through the city streets, eventually pulling up to the Foundation's administrative headquarters. Claire strode through the sleek lobby, her heels clicking purposefully against the polished floors. In the records room, rows of neatly labeled boxes and digital terminals awaited. Claire logged into the secure database and began searching for any mention of David Harris. It didn't take long to find a file. As she opened it, a photograph of a smiling man with kind eyes stared back at her. He had dark hair, a strong jawline, and a warmth that radiated even through the grainy image. Claire's brow furrowed as she read through the file. David Harris had once been a promising architect, known for designing sustainable housing projects. He had worked on several community initiatives in partnership with the Thompson Global Foundation, projects spearheaded by Lucas himself. Her heart skipped a beat. Lucas and David had known each other. She flipped through the documents, her pulse quickening as she found correspondence between the two men. Letters filled with sketches, ideas, and heartfelt conversations about their shared dream of building homes for those in need. One letter caught her eye. Lucas, thanks for believing in me when no one else would. Your faith in this project means everything. I'll always be grateful to you, and for what you shared with me. The necklace is a reminder of that trust. I'll keep it safe. David. Claire's hand trembled as she read the words. Lucas had given the necklace to David. But why? And what had he shared with him that was so important? Her mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Claire's assistant, Sarah, appeared at the doorway, concern etched across her face. Mrs. Thompson, is everything all right? Claire took a steadying breath, closing the file. I'm not sure yet, she admitted, but I need to find out. Sarah hesitated. There's someone here to see you, a woman named Evelyn Harris. She says it's urgent. The name sent a jolt through Claire, David's wife. She said they were married years ago, but she seems nervous. Claire's resolve hardened. Send her to my office. Back in her office, Claire waited as Sarah escorted Evelyn inside. The woman was in her late 40s, with streaks of silver in her dark hair and eyes that spoke of hardship. She clutched a worn handbag, her knuckles white. Mrs. Thompson, Evelyn said, her voice strained. Thank you for seeing me. Claire gestured for her to sit. Please, call me Claire. How can I help you? Evelyn's gaze flickered nervously. It's about Jamie. Claire's heart raced. What about him? I need you to protect him, Evelyn said urgently. There are things you don't know. Things about David, about Lucas, about why Jamie has that necklace. Claire leaned forward, her voice steady. Then tell me. I need to know the truth. Evelyn took a shaky breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. It's a long story, she warned. I have time, Claire assured her. As Evelyn began to speak, Claire braced herself for revelations that would unravel everything she thought she knew. About Lucas, about David, and about the boy who had unexpectedly walked into her life, carrying the key to a past long buried. The secrets they kept. Evelyn Harris' hands trembled as she clasped them tightly in her lap. The weight of untold stories lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. Claire sat across from her, composed but inwardly bracing herself for whatever truth was about to be revealed. The city skyline stretched behind them, golden rays of the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the room. But Claire's focus was entirely on Evelyn. Please, Claire urged softly, start from the beginning. Evelyn exhaled shakily. David and Lucas. They were more than just colleagues. They were dreamers. Both of them wanted to build a better world, one where people had homes and dignity, no matter their background. Claire nodded. I knew Lucas was passionate about his work with community housing projects, but I never realized how deep his partnerships went. Evelyn's lips quivered into a sad smile. David admired Lucas, maybe more than anyone else in his life. He always said Lucas was the kind of man who made you believe the impossible was within reach. Claire's heart ached at the familiar description. Lucas had always carried that boundless optimism, a trait that had drawn people to him. But then, Evelyn continued, her voice cracking. Things changed. Claire leaned in. What happened? Evelyn's gaze grew distant. David was diagnosed with cancer. We had Jamie by then, and everything we'd worked for started slipping through our fingers. The medical bills piled up, and David had to abandon his architectural dreams just to keep us afloat. I'm so sorry, Claire said softly. Evelyn's eyes shimmered with tears. Lucas didn't abandon him, though. He visited David often, brought him projects to work on remotely, even paid for some of the treatments without making a fuss about it. But it wasn't just out of friendship, it was guilt. Guilt? Claire's brow furrowed. Evelyn hesitated, as if torn between loyalty and the need to reveal the truth. Lucas had a secret, something he trusted only David with. I don't know all the details, but I know it involved that necklace. Claire's gaze sharpened. The necklace. Yes, Evelyn confirmed. David told me Lucas gave it to him, not just as a token of friendship, but as a symbol of something much bigger. David promised to protect it, and to protect Jamie too. Claire's pulse quickened. Why would Lucas ask him to protect Jamie? That doesn't make any sense. Evelyn bit her lip. David said it was better if I didn't know everything. He wanted to keep us safe. Her voice broke. When David passed, Jamie clung to that necklace like it was the only thing connecting him to his father, and to whatever promise David had made to Lucas. Claire's mind raced, piecing together fragments of information. Lucas had been a man of integrity, but he'd also carried burdens he hadn't shared with her. Had he been protecting something, or someone, when he entrusted David with the necklace? Evelyn's voice pulled Claire back to the present. Jamie doesn't know any of this. He just knows his father loved him, and that the necklace was important. But I'm telling you now because I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Claire pressed. Evelyn's hands clenched tightly. There are people who know about that necklace, people who might come after Jamie because of it. David mentioned something about investors who weren't happy with Lucas's decisions. He said they were dangerous. Claire's jaw tightened. The thought of Jamie, a vulnerable child, being targeted because of a long-buried secret was infuriating. I won't let anything happen to Jamie, Claire vowed. I'll protect him, no matter what. Evelyn's eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you. I didn't know where else to turn. Claire stood, her resolve unshakable. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Lucas may be gone, but his legacy, and whatever secrets he was protecting, won't destroy Jamie's life. As Evelyn prepared to leave, Claire's assistant, Sarah, appeared at the door once again. Mrs. Thompson, Sarah said cautiously, there's a man here asking to see you. He says it's about the necklace. Claire's heart skipped a beat. What's his name? Andrew Whittaker, Sarah replied. He claims to be a former associate of Lucas. Claire's eyes narrowed. Tell him I'll be right out. Evelyn's face paled. Be careful, she warned. David mentioned that name once, said he couldn't be trusted. Claire's jaw set. I'll handle him. As Evelyn left through a side exit, Claire squared her shoulders and strode toward the reception area. A tall man with graying hair and a sharp suit waited, his expression a calculated blend of charm and authority. Mr. Whittaker, Claire greeted coolly. To what do I owe the pleasure? Whittaker's smile didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Thompson, I believe we have some unfinished business regarding your late husband's endeavors. Claire's gaze remained steady. I'm afraid you'll have to be more specific. Whittaker's eyes flickered with something dark. Let's not play games. We both know what I'm talking about. The necklace. It's in your possession, isn't it? Claire's pulse quickened, but she maintained her composure. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Whittaker's smile sharpened. If you think you can hide the truth, you're mistaken. That necklace holds the key to something very valuable, and there are people willing to do whatever it takes to get it. Claire's voice turned icy. Is that a threat? Consider it a friendly warning, Whittaker said smoothly. For your sake, and the boys, stay out of this. Claire's eyes blazed. If you think I'm going to back down, you don't know me at all. Whittaker's smile faded. Then I suppose we'll see who comes out on top. As he turned and walked away, Claire's fists clenched at her sides. She had faced countless challenges in her life, but this was personal. Lucas's legacy was on the line, and Jamie's safety was at stake. And Claire Thompson was not a woman who surrendered easily. Unraveling the truth. Claire paced her office, the weight of Whittaker's veiled threats pressing heavily on her chest. The afternoon sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the room. Her mind raced with questions she couldn't shake. What was so important about the necklace? And why had Lucas never told her about it? Her phone vibrated on the desk, pulling her from her thoughts. The screen displayed a familiar number. "Detective Mills," she answered, her voice steadied despite the turmoil inside. "Claire," the detective's gruff voice came through. "I did some digging like you asked. This Whittaker guy. Bad news. He's been involved in some shady business deals for years, most of them linked to offshore accounts and illegal land acquisitions." "Why would he be interested in Lucas's work?" Claire asked. "Probably because Lucas blocked one of his biggest land grabs years ago," Mills explained. "Lucas wanted that land for affordable housing. Whittaker wanted it for a luxury development. Word is, Lucas won, but Whittaker never forgot." Claire's grip tightened on the phone. "And now he thinks the necklace is connected to all of this." "It's possible," Mills admitted. "But be careful, Claire. This guy plays dirty." "Thanks, Mills," Claire said. "I'll handle it." As she hung up, Claire's thoughts turned back to Jamie. She needed to protect him, but she also needed answers. Evelyn's warnings echoed in her mind, and Claire knew she had to move carefully. But one thing was clear: she couldn't do this alone. Later that evening, Claire drove herself to Haven House. The streets were quieter now, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. When she arrived, Miriam greeted her at the entrance. "Jamie's in the rec room," Miriam said with a smile. "He's fitting in well." Claire felt a surge of relief. "That's good to hear. Thank you, Miriam." She made her way down the hallway, the faint sound of laughter and conversation guiding her to the rec room. Jamie sat cross-legged on the floor, engrossed in a board game with a few other kids. "Hey, Jamie," Claire called softly. He looked up, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Claire, you came back. I promised, didn't I?" she said with a smile. Jamie stood, his expression curious. "What's going on?" "I need to talk to you," Claire said gently. "It's important." They found a quiet corner in the lounge, away from prying ears. Jamie fidgeted with the necklace around his neck, his gaze wary. "Jamie," Claire began, "I need to ask you about your dad. Did he ever tell you why this necklace was so important?" Jamie's brow furrowed. "He said it was special, that it was a gift from someone who trusted him a lot. He told me to never lose it." Claire nodded. "Did he ever mention a man named Andrew Whittaker?" Jamie's eyes darkened. "Yeah, Dad didn't like him. He said Whittaker was dangerous, and that I should stay away from people like him." Claire's heart sank. "Jamie, I need you to trust me. There are people who want that necklace, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe. But I need your help." Jamie hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, I trust you." Claire placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Good. We're in this together." The next morning, Claire met with Detective Mills in a discreet cafe on the outskirts of town. The detective's grizzled appearance belied his sharp mind and unyielding determination. "I pulled some strings and found this," Mills said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Claire opened it, revealing a stack of documents. Blueprints, financial records, and correspondence between Lucas and David Harris filled the pages. One letter stood out, written in Lucas's familiar handwriting. "Mills, if you're reading this, it means things didn't go as planned. The necklace holds the key to the Harris project, our greatest achievement and our greatest risk. Protect Jamie at all costs. He's the future of what we built together." "Lucas." Claire's breath caught in her throat. "The Harris project," she whispered. "It was a blueprint for sustainable, community-driven housing," Mills explained. "Lucas and David wanted to revolutionize how people lived, but their plans threatened some powerful interests, Whitaker being one of them. Claire's mind raced. So the necklace isn't just a token. It's a key to something bigger. Mills nodded. Exactly. The pendant contains encrypted data. Lucas was always one step ahead. Claire clenched her fists. Whitaker won't stop until he gets it. Then we make sure he doesn't, Mills said grimly. Back at Haven House, Claire found Jamie in the courtyard, kicking a soccer ball around with a few other kids. He looked up as she approached, his expression guarded. "Hey," she said, kneeling beside him. "We need to talk." Jamie's face turned serious. "Did you find out what's going on?" "I did," Claire admitted. "And it's bigger than I thought. Your dad and Lucas were trying to change the world, but some people didn't want that to happen. That necklace you're wearing, it's the key to everything they built." Jamie's fingers tightened around the pendant. "But why me?" "Because your dad trusted you," Claire said gently. "And now I'd do too." Jamie's gaze hardened with determination. "What do we do now?" Claire smiled despite the gravity of the situation. "We fight back." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in hues of gold and crimson, Claire knew their journey was far from over. But with Jamie by her side and the truth finally coming to light, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The final revelation. The following morning dawned heavy with anticipation. A thin layer of fog clung to the streets, softening the edges of the bustling city. Claire stood at the window of her office, her eyes distant as she watched the world below. Today would be the day. Detective Mills had set everything in motion. Whitaker's connections were formidable, but Mills wasn't one to back down from a challenge. Legal measures were being put in place, but Claire knew it might not be enough. As much as she wanted to shield Jamie from what was coming, she also knew that he had a right to see this through. The boy had proven resilient beyond his years, a testament to the strength instilled in him by his late father. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Sarah peeked in, her expression tense. "Mrs. Thompson," she said quietly. "He's here." Claire's jaw tightened. "Whitaker?" Sarah nodded. "He demanded to see you. I told him you were busy, but—" "It's okay," Claire interrupted. "Send him to the conference room. I'll meet him there." Sarah hesitated, then gave a curt nod and disappeared down the hallway. Claire turned to Jamie, who had been sitting quietly in one of the office chairs. "You ready for this?" she asked. Jamie's fingers brushed against the necklace around his neck. His eyes, so young yet filled with determination, met hers. "Yeah. Let's finish it." The conference room was bathed in cold, artificial light. Whitaker stood near the window, his silhouette sharp against the backdrop of the city skyline. His tailored suit and polished shoes spoke of wealth and power, but there was an edge to his presence, a darkness that lingered just beneath the surface. "Mrs. Thompson," he greeted smoothly as Claire and Jamie entered. "And the boy. How charming." Claire's expression was icy. "Let's cut to the chase. Whitaker, you want the necklace. Why?" Whitaker's smile was razor thin. "Ah, straight to business. I admire that." His gaze flickered to Jamie. "That necklace contains something very valuable, something your late husband and his friend David Harris thought they could hide from me." "They weren't hiding it from you," Claire shot back. "They were protecting it from people like you." Whitaker's eyes gleamed with menace. "Semantics, Mrs. Thompson. Now, I suggest you hand it over before things get unpleasant." Jamie stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tremor Claire could sense beneath it. "My dad said this necklace was important. I'm not giving it to you." Whitaker's expression darkened. Brave, but foolish. The door behind them opened, and Detective Mills strode in, flanked by 2 officers. "That's enough, Whitaker," Mills said grimly. "You're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and a laundry list of other charges." Whitaker's composure faltered for the first time. "You think this will stop me?" he sneered. Mills smirked. "Oh, I think it'll slow you down plenty." As the officers moved to handcuff him, Whittaker cast one last venomous glance at Claire and Jamie. "This isn't over." Claire's voice was firm. "Yes, it is." With Whittaker in custody, the weight on Claire's chest began to lift. But there was still one more piece of the puzzle to uncover. Back in her office, Detective Mills placed a small device on the table. "This is what Lucas hid in the necklace," he explained. "It's a data chip containing encrypted files. My tech guys decrypted it. It's the blueprint for the Harris project, along with detailed plans for sustainable housing models that could revolutionize urban living." Claire's breath caught. Lucas always dreamed of something like this. "And now it's possible," Mills said. "Thanks to you and Jamie." Jamie's eyes were wide. "My dad did all that." Claire smiled gently. "He was a visionary, Jamie, just like your dad." Jamie's gaze softened. "I want to help finish what they started." Claire's heart swelled with pride. "We will, Jamie, together." Months later, the Harris-Thompson Initiative was officially launched. The groundbreaking ceremony was a testament to the vision Lucas and David had shared, a community-driven housing project designed to provide affordable, sustainable homes for families in need. Claire stood at the podium, Jamie by her side. The crowd gathered before them buzzed with anticipation. "This project is a tribute to two extraordinary men," Claire began, her voice steady. "Lucas Thompson and David Harris believed in a world where everyone had a place to call home. Their dream lives on through this initiative, and through the strength and resilience of those they inspired." Jamie stepped forward, his voice clear and confident. "My dad always said that dreams are worth fighting for, and thanks to all of you, his dream is coming true." The crowd erupted into applause, but Jamie's gaze remained on Claire. "Thank you," he said quietly. Claire's throat tightened. "No, Jamie. Thank you." As the ceremony continued, Claire felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been filled with challenges and heartache, but it had also brought unexpected bonds and a renewed sense of purpose. Lucas and David's legacy would endure, and Jamie's future was brighter than ever. And Claire knew, without a doubt, that love, resilience, and the courage to fight for what was right would always prevail. A new beginning. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh grass and newly turned soil as the Harris-Thompson Initiative broke ground on its first housing project. Claire stood near the ceremonial site, her heart filled with pride and bittersweet memories. Construction equipment gleamed under the morning sun, and workers moved efficiently, laying the foundation for what would become a beacon of hope for countless families. Jamie, now more confident and hopeful than ever, stood beside her. His necklace gleamed in the sunlight, no longer just a relic of the past, but a symbol of resilience, determination, and a future built on love and sacrifice. "You ready for this?" Claire asked with a smile. Jamie nodded, his eyes bright. "Yeah, Dad would be proud, right?" Claire's throat tightened. "He already is." The mayor approached the podium, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. The Harris-Thompson Initiative represents more than just homes. It's about building a future where everyone has a chance to thrive. And none of this would be possible without the visionary leadership of Claire Thompson and the courage of young Jamie Harris. The crowd erupted into applause. Jamie glanced at Claire, who gave him a reassuring nod. "Go on," she encouraged. Jamie took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. The once timid boy had transformed into a young leader, his voice steady and clear. "My dad always told me that dreams are worth fighting for," Jamie began. "Even when things get hard, even when it feels like the world is against you, you keep going. This project is for people who need a place to belong. Just like my dad believed in me, I believe in this." The crowd listened intently, moved by his words. "This isn't just about buildings," Jamie continued. "It's about giving people a chance to build their own futures. And I promise to do everything I can to make that happen." Applause filled the air as Jamie stepped back, his face flushed with pride. Claire wrapped an arm around him, her heart full. "You were amazing," she whispered. As the ceremony concluded, Claire and Jamie mingled with guests, accepting congratulations and heartfelt thanks. People from all walks of life had come to witness the birth of something extraordinary. Evelyn approached them, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "You've done something incredible, Claire." "We all did," Claire said, smiling. "Thank you for believing in us." Evelyn's gaze softened as she looked at Jamie. "Your father would be so proud of you." Jamie nodded solemnly. "I miss him, but I'm glad I can keep his dream alive." "You're doing more than that," Evelyn said gently. "You're inspiring others." Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Claire and Jamie returned to their favorite spot by the river. The water shimmered under the fading light, and the world seemed quieter, more at peace. "Do you think it'll really work?" Jamie asked, kicking a pebble into the water. "It will," Claire assured him, "because we're not doing this alone. We have a whole community behind us." Jamie was quiet for a moment. "I used to think being alone was just how life was supposed to be. But now I know it doesn't have to be that way." Claire's heart ached at the thought of all he had endured, but she was grateful for the bond they had forged. "You're never alone, Jamie," she said softly. "Not anymore." He smiled, the weight of the past finally lifting from his shoulders. As they sat by the river, watching the world transform around them, Claire knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, but they had already proven that love, courage, and the power of dreams could overcome anything. And together, they would build a future worth fighting for.